start with the first phase, which is a twilight. This is a time when Gibran was very much affected by Romanticism. And I want to remind you, Romanticism, you met that with Goethe's Faust. This was a movement which started in Europe about getting back to nature. Return to nature, return to the outside, a rebellion against this scholastic education system, which everything is books, and let us go back to nature. Let us, sit on the grass, and this is why his paintings are nudes or, in fact, people without clothes because you want to go back to nature. This is a time when you have the famous William Blake, who is a British poet who did the Lake District Poets, again, all about nature and the scenery and so forth. So there was this influence of this Romanticism. There is also another influence, which is the influence of mysticism. This mystic of me and God are, Gibran had his own brand of religion. He was very religious, very spiritual, but in his own way. He wasn't a traditional churchgoer on Sunday. He would think that, everything he does is prayer. Everything is, God is in everything, and and everything is in God. So there is this influence of the mystic, of the Eastern religions, of the Buddhist sort of Hindu incense and so forth. There was also a critical approach at this time of his Lebanon. This is a time when he wrote that famous poem, "Lakum Lubnanakum wali Lubnani." You have your Lebanon and I have my Lebanon, and I will post that too so that you can read it. Gibran thought there was a hypocrisy in Lebanon between Lebanon as a country, as its nature, and these politics of priests and confessions and the church and the people. And so he wanted to divide this. In his mind, the Lebanon that he loved was pure, no intrigues, no hypocrisy, no corruption. And in reality, every time he came, he was disappointed to see what was the reality. This is a time also where he calls for freedom and liberation and independence. This is a time when we're pre-First World War, the time when we're starting a little bit to rebel against the Ottoman Empire, against the famine of the Ottoman Empire, which made so many people leave. And then for religious tolerance, accept the other. And he also believed that we are all together brothers and a universal sense of humanity. This was before the time when there was the Declaration of Human Rights, yet he was very much an advocate of human rights and humanity. So most of the drawings are from this phase, and you have your Lebanon poem, which we will read together later, is also from this stage. Then comes the second phase, and the second phase is referred to as the phase of the night. This is a time when Gibran went into a lot of depression, bitterness. He was angry at everything. His love life wasn't well. His health wasn't very good. He was very much influenced in this stage by Nietzsche. There is a lot of Nietzsche in the prophet. This Mustafa and this guy who comes as a prophet and talks to the people, very much like Zarathustra coming down. Of course, the difference is that Nietzsche killed God, whereas Gibran resurrected God. In other words, he put God in everything, that he was a very much believer in this power of the divine. But in his writings, we see this influence of the master and the slave. We see this very much in his poem on freedom. If you want to liberate yourself, or if you want freedom, first remove the chains that are in you before you remove the chains that are in others. So very much that this free spirit that Nietzsche talked about. He was also very much in sympathy for the World War I victims, and he was very much also in sympathy with the famine, that was in Lebanon at that time. You know, the famine that was in Lebanon was the cause for all these people to immigrate to South America and the Americas and so forth. In this period of the night, which is darkness in his writings, he wrote a book called The Madman, and he also was very much disappointed with society. He was disappointed with the system, and he kept on criticizing this with his friends about what was going on in Lebanon at that time. And there was also a withdrawal from nature. He went into his rooms, he closed the windows, he put the dark curtains, and he wouldn't even go out. He would stay in his stuffy background. And then comes the phase 3 of his writings, which is day or hope. In this phase, Gebran is extremely spiritual. Gebran was very much a pantheist, pan everywhere, theos God. Gebran did not think that God is in one place. He thought God is everywhere. And God is as much out as he is in us. So you could look within, like the Sufis, to find God, or you could just look at creation, and in everywhere there was a sign. There was a sign of God, unity of all beings. Everything is boundless. And that man is not, human being is not just body and spirit, but it's body, spirit, and mind, very much like Plato. He also believed in the collective responsibility, that we're all together responsible for what happens. In his paragraph on crime and punishment, he says for everyone that falls, there are two people who are responsible. The one before, who did not remove the stone which made this person fall, and the one behind who did not hold the person and stopped him from falling. So this collective responsibility for every misfortune, there are people who could have prevented it, and there are the people who could have avoided the person from doing it. And there are three people in it, not only that I am guilty, but we have a collective responsibility. He also was very much in reincarnation. He thought very much like the Buddhists that we will never die, but we will all come back. And this continuity, that there could be no full stop in our lives, you know, it should all go and be, you know, the river flowing into the sea and the sea flowing into the river, and it keeps on turning and becoming all together blended. It is a product of the stage that we have the book called The Prophet. Now, The Prophet, I have put for you the connection. If we look at the table of contents of The Prophet, and I'm going to read them to you. The table of contents of The Prophet is this way. There is first the coming of the ship, which comes to this place where they are all gathered together. It is here that this guy comes, and who is the prophet and the Mustafa or whatever, and the priestess. There is like a lady who asks him, and they ask, the people start telling him, talk to us about, and look at the subjects on which the prophet will talk about: love, marriage, children, giving, eating and drinking, work, joy and sorrow, houses, clothes, buying and selling, crime and punishment, laws, freedom, reason and passion, pain, self-knowledge, teaching, friendship, talking, time, good and evil, prayer, pleasure, beauty, religion, death. What does Gebran do here? He talks on every aspect of life, from birth to death, to all the things that are concerned to us, to all the values, to all the things that you would like to question him about. And for everyone, he gives us an answer. And this is fantastic because for Gebran, there is a kind of interpretation of life in his own way. I'm sure that if you want, I suggest the way to read this book is to pick a paragraph every day and read it. Many people, nowadays use Gibran for their weddings. For instance, if we take the chapter on marriage, the Al-Mitra, who is the priestess, says, talk to us about marriage. He says, you shall be together, even in the silent memory of God. But let there be spaces in your togetherness. Gibran is extremely modern. You're a couple, but give breathing space to each other. Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Love each other, but don't chain each other. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your soul. Fill each other's cups, but drink not from one cup. Give one another of your bread, but eat not from the same loaf. Be a partner, but not one master and one slave. Sing and dance together. And then he says, stand together, yet not too near together, for the pillars of the temple stand apart. If you have the columns of a house next to each other, the roof will collapse. So you have to have the columns a little bit far to be they are support of the family, but they are at their own corners. And the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow. You can't have two trees growing in the shadows of each other. You need each one to have its own space and its own. So this was, many people today when they get married, they use these verses in civil marriages as part of Gibran. As for love, Gibran talks about love and he uses the concept of love, but in his mind there is the concept of love al-mahabba. And in fact, when Fairuz sings this, and if you can listen to Fairuz singing al-mahabba, this is a translation of this. His concept of love is fantastic. He says, this is the first poem that he has. He says, love beckons you, follow him. Love crowns you, but also crucifies you. There are always these extremes with Gibran. Love ascends you, elevates you, but it also descends you. When you are in love, you can become divine, but you can also become a devil. What does love do to you? It says, love descends you to your roots, and then, like corn, it threshes you, it cuts you, it sifts you, it grinds you, and kneads you, and makes you into a sacred bread. This imagery of the harvesting is very much found also, if you remember, in the poem of Baal and Anat. When Anat killed Mot, she took him and she threshed him and she sifted him and then she ate him and then Baal was born again. Very much in our Canaanite Phoenician culture. So what does love do? Love transforms you into living bread, and then the bread gives children, of course. And love gives nothing of itself and takes nothing but from itself. Love possesses not. Love is sufficient unto love. المحبة لا تعطي إلا من ذاتها ولا تأخذ إلا من ذاتها. This is the song that Fairuz sings. Love has no desire but to fulfill itself. And so this is also read sometimes as, now, when you have love and you have marriage, you have also children. And what does he say about children? This is something, it's nice if you can sit and read it with your parents. What does he say? Your children are not your children. Good Lord, whose children are they? They come through you, but not from you. Though they are with you, yet they do not belong to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts. Parents, don't try to give your children your thoughts, for you dwell in the house of yesterday, where they dwell in the house of tomorrow. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor carries with yesterday. You are the bows, the bow and arrow, from which your children go forth. And then he gives this beautiful picture. As you look at the book, you will find the picture of the archer. You know, when parents are very strict, then your string is very tight. And then when you let the arrow goes very far. And if you give them hard times, they will go and succeed. It's a bit the suffering concept of Nietzsche. Gibran has these beautiful sayings that are neither Christian nor Muslim nor Hindu nor Buddhism. They are just wise expressions that people at any time can read and find beauty in them. When he says, for example, if somebody asked him about, what do you say about teachers? And he says, the teacher should not try to give his or her ideas to the students, but should lead them to the threshold of their minds. This is a bit like Socrates, who said, my mother delivers babies, I deliver minds. If the teacher is wise, he does not bid you enter the house of his wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your own mind. For the vision of one man lends not its wings to another man. And then somebody else said, what about time? And he said, yesterday is but today's memory, and tomorrow is today's dream. You would measure time, the measureless and the immeasurable. And somebody asked him, what do you say about pleasure? And he says, pleasure is a freedom song, but it is not freedom. It is the blossoming of your desires, but it is not the fruit. It is the depth calling unto a height, but it is not the deep nor the high. I, in very truth, pleasure is a freedom song. Some of your youth seeks pleasure. I would not judge nor rebuke. 7 are the sisters of pleasure, and the least of them is more beautiful than pleasure. And then, if you ask, I'm not going to read them all with you. They're beautiful sayings. I suggest you read them, and whenever we meet, we will go on discussing them. Enjoy Gebran Khalil Gebran's The Prophet. I will post again for you the poem on You Have Your Lebanon and I Have Mine, and that also we can discuss. Stay safe and take care of yourselves. Thank you.